Greetings students, this is Professor Jump. In this video, I'm going to go over everything you need to do to be successful on the proficiency test. So as I described in class, this assessment is designed to test your ability to use Studio One. Here's how it's organized. I ask you to do 7 tasks. You either cannot do the task, you can do the task, but I have to prompt you, which means say things like click here or do that or add an event. Or you can do the task without me saying anything, without me prompting you at all. Each question is worth 3 points, so it's either 1, 2, or 3. And the total points is 21. Okay. Here's the first task. Set up a new project in Studio One and save the song properly. So create a new song, opens up the setup wizard, call this proficiency test. What is critical when you start a new DAW project is to point the program to the appropriate folder. You can't just close your eyes and hope for the best. So on the desktop, I started this proficiency test folder, and that's where I will point Studio One. The rest of the parameters are fine. And then click OK. That's the first question. Here's the second question. Add 2 tracks, one for a drum machine and one for a bass instrument. Okay. So if you open up the browser, which is in the bottom right hand corner, and then go to Instruments and bring over a drum machine, select any drum set you want, and bring over some instrument that has bass. MIDI works, presonus works. Let's go with the MIDI. And then select some bass instrument. It's organized by category. Bass is up top. Bad buzz. Sounds awesome. Okay. 2 tracks. One's a drum machine. One's a bass. Pretty easy. Okay, then sequence a 1 measure drum beat and duplicate the measure 4 times. Here's a critical detail that it seems that I've imperfectly described. Before you add any MIDI data, you have to add an event or add a big blue rectangle. And I just did that by double clicking in the arranger. Here's my mouse. 1, 2. That means this is measure 1. Click, click. I get a rectangle. Now we can open up the editor either by double clicking on the event or by single clicking on the event so that it highlights, and then in the bottom right hand corner clicking on edit, and it opens up the editor. Notice I have my quantize value to 1/8 notes. It's a nice easy way to sequence. And let's sequence Billie Jean. Here's the bass drum. That goes on 1 and 3. Snare drum. It goes 2 and 4. And then the hi-hat. Let's go with the closed hat. It ties the room together. Here's an easy way to do it. Put it in on 1, and then press D to duplicate, and it goes in according to your quantize grid. Oops, I put in 1 extra one. There we go. And then make that measure happen 4 times. Nice and simple. Highlight it. Press D to duplicate. 1, 2, 3. More times. And just like that, I have 4 measures. Test it out by playing it. It should be good. Okay. Connect the MIDI controller and configure Studio One for a live recording. Okay, so we have these MIDI controllers in class. We have the cable hooked into the back right. The other end, USB cable, goes into your computer. But my camera is now occupying that input, so I'll have to do an alternative. First things first, though, I notice that my meter is peaking. Click that peak off. Also, there are more tracks than I need, so get rid of those. Alright, so I'm going to sequence with the MIDI controller. So that means I have to go to Studio One, option, external devices. And then here it is, the CME X key. And that's what you'll choose in class. And then click OK. But mine's not connected because of my camera. So what I'm going to do is Alt 9 opens up the QWERTY keyboard. So now I can play the synthesizer using my computer keyboard. Pretty handy. Right, so once again, I just press Alt and then 9, and this appeared. Right. So if you're without a MIDI controller, then you can always use this. Okay, so that's number 4. And configure Studio One for a live recording. Second half of number 4. Nice and simple. All you got to do is make sure that the record enable button is pressed and that the monitor button is pressed so that you can hear. And also, it's wise to have your metronome on so that you can hear the beat in addition to the one that you sequenced. Click that peak off. I know what I'll do. I'll go and turn these tracks down. They're clearly misbehaving already. Everything's so loud. Okay. I'm ready to go. I'm going to click return to 0 and fulfill the obligations of number 5. Record a bass or a drum figure with the MIDI controller. And then I'll do the second half after I do that. So all I need to do is click return to 0. That's this triangle with a line on it. And press record. And I'll use my QWERTY keyboard MIDI controller. I can't really hear what's happening because of the way that my recording setup is configured. Alright, I'm sure it's a masterpiece. Second half is to select the resulting MIDI data and quantize it to the tempo map. Okay, so double click on the event, zoom to the appropriate level so that you may see the totality of what you just entered. You can do that by pressing E and W, or you can use these toggle switches on the bottom right. Here we go again. Get that. I'm sure I'm in the way. This is your zoom selector. But if you'd rather use your keyboard, you can just press W, makes it smaller, and E makes it larger. You'll have to chase it with the slider on the bottom. right? You zoom in or out too far, and then it goes too far to the left or to the right. Just make sure that you zoom to a level where you can see everything you've entered. Okay, so this is the key. You need to get below it or above it, and all the way to the left or to the right of it, and click and drag, and it all highlights. All right, watch the mouse, watch the mouse, watch the mouse. Q to quantize. Select your quantize level. I'm going to keep it at 1/8 notes, nice and square. But you know, maybe if you sequence something fancier, you might need 16th notes, or maybe if it's super simple, just quarter notes. But let's make it 1/8 notes. It's all highlighted. Last step. Over on the far right, right above my head, apply. And then all of the MIDI data quantized to the map. Okay, create an audio track and apply an equalizer as an insert and perform a notch. Where are we going to get audio? If you go to the browser and click on loops and open up the audio files directory, we have all kinds of audio files. So we already have drums and bass. Maybe we can add, I don't know, some keyboard part. I don't know. I can't decide. This sounds fun. Okay, bring that over. Notice that we have audio, right? These events are filled with MIDI data, but this is an actual waveform, right? MIDI, audio, MIDI, audio. Notice their fundamental difference. Okay, well, what are we going to do here? I'm going to open up the mixer. Here it is, that funk soul. And as an insert, go to the plus sign, open up the presonus directory, and go to the plugin called Pro EQ, and perform a notch. A notch is the simplest way to use an equalizer. Just select some frequency in the center and notch a frequency down. Or if you want to increase that same frequency, then notch it up. Let's go with a cut. Cuts are more wise. Free some space. Okay. I'm sure that this sounds completely awful, especially since I couldn't hear anything. Looks like we're in business though, because nothing's peaking. There we go, so you can see the master fader. Notice that it's not red. If you look at your master and it's red over here, and then you have to fix something. But mine's not. Okay. Last step, multifaceted. Apply a limiter to the master track of your project and increase the volume to around -13 RMS. Then monitor your track with Studio One's plugin called Level Meter, and determine the amplitude of your track as measured by LUFS. So if we go to around -13 RMS, we should get to the same degree, or roughly to the same degree in LUFS. Let's check it out. First things first, here's a useful keyboard shortcut in Studio One. I'm about to use the level meter and the limiter, but I don't want to have to keep going back to the transport panel and pressing play and stop and rewind. So we might as well put the loop indicator over all of the material. Left hand, Control A, right hand, letter P. Control A, highlighted everything. P, put the loop indicator over all of the selected material. Now if I go to the infinite loop button on the transport panel, Studio One will play that ad infinitum. Okay, press play. Bring up your mixer. On the far right is that master channel. And go to the insert, bring up the limiter. And what do we have? It looks like it's pretty soft, minus 26 or so. Okay, so let's set a ceiling, minus 0.3. That is the industry standard. And then begin to gently increase the input value until you're getting somewhere around minus 13, minus 14. RMS. RMS is represented by these hovering white dashes. Looks like I'm still kind of quiet. Alright, not bad. Close the limiter. Go to the plus sign on the insert menu of the master channel and bring up the level meter. Change it to R128, which I'm pretty sure stands for the European Broadcast Union. Change it to LUFS, and then continually press reset. Okay, seems like I'm a little bit quiet. Let's go back to the limiter just for a moment, and just a little more push. Back to the level meter, and how am I doing? You know, I'm okay with that. It could go a little louder, but why push it? Okay. That's everything.